Hey everyone, and welcome to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy presented by Spellhold Games. Tonight we have a bit of a grind fest. This is January 25th, round one, and we have Mason on Death and Taxes on the right, and we have John on Death and Taxes on the left. The only difference is John is sporting the Yorion version, where he has to have an additional 80 cards in his deck, so he has access to a lot more things, a lot more four ofs, and one of silver bullets that he can search up. So, enough of that, let's get started. All right, John has the play here. Let me just, yeah, there we go. Starting off with a turn one Mother of Runes. Mother of Runes being able to tap and give any creature he controls protection from any color. And that's two more Mother of Runes down. This is going to make Mason doing pretty much anything interacting almost impossible because he can tap and give things protection in response to giving protection from his first or second Mother of Runes. Now we have an Aether Vial down on Mason's side, and that was an Umezawa's Jite coming down. I didn't bring it up because we saw Skyclave Apparition come down and get rid of it almost immediately. Unfortunately, Umezawa's Jite was the best version, best card to kind of get rid of the Mother of Runes, since it is a colorless source. They can't protect themselves from that. But Skyclave Apparition coming down, getting rid of it, not a problem. We are flying through this first match here. Esper Sentinel giving an additional tax for any non-creature spells that John's going to be casting, but there's not a ton beyond Aether Vials and maybe the Swords to Plowshares here or there. We see a Stoneforge Mystic come down. It didn't actually search up anything. That's because Mason had the Cauldron Complete in his hand. So it comes down, and as we see here, John did declare blocks with the Skyclave Apparition, but tapped one of his Mother of Runes to give it protection from black. So Cauldron Complete did not, or rather the Germ attached to Cauldron Complete did not deal any combat damage to that Skyclave Apparition, and because of that, it did not exile it with that effect. John searching up, oh well, here's Cauldron Complete if you want to take a look at it. Then John went ahead and searched up a Batterskull with his own Stoneforge Mystic, being able to, if he can get it into play, it will give him an opportunity to kind of stabilize with Lifelink and Vigilance. This Cauldron Complete on Mason's side getting loaded up with Sword of Fire and Ice. This is now a 7/7 with Trample, First Strike, all the fun things. So if this gets through any damage, he gets to draw an extra card and also deal 2 damage to any source. So it looked like that was blocks, giving multiple things protection so that he took a little less damage. He did take damage from that, but it looks like Mason just ended up shooting the Cauldron Complete. All right, we have the Stoneforge Mystic being activated, getting another Cauldron Complete down into play. We have a 5/5 Germ, declaring blocks against a 7/7 Germ. Tapping, giving protection from black. So double blocks, giving protection from black to both creatures. Mason going for the Solitude on the Cauldron Complete. The third Mother of Runes being tapped. Solitude trying to Swords to Plowshares. That Germ would have gained him 5 life, but protection from white and black now. In response, activating Aether Vial. The Flicker Wisp comes down and flickers out the Germ. Because it is a token creature, it will not come back to play. So, now we're having damage resolve. He's shooting the Stoneforge Mystic with the 2 damage from the swords, or the Sword of Fire and Ice. And we are down to Athalia is in play, although they both do have a Karakas on their side of the field. I had to jump past it since we were going so fast earlier, but Karakas can bounce any legendary creature. We have a Thalia coming down. It's going to tax all non-creature spells, kind of like the Esper Sentinel, but it's not doing much anyways. It's more of just a 2/1 first strike attacker at this point, or blocker. Recruiter of the Guard coming down on John's side. That's actually going to go and search his deck for any creature with power, nope, toughness 2 or less, and put that into his hand. He ended up grabbing a Solitude. So for those of you keeping track at home, John has a Yorion in hand, a Batterskull in hand, and a Solitude in hand. And he is sitting on 4 mana. All 3 of those cards have converted mana cost 5, so he is just short of casting any of those cards, although he can evoke the Solitude if he needs to. All right, we have declared attacks with Cauldron Complete and a Flicker Wisp with a Sword of Fire and Ice attached to it. We are doing the old trick of blocking the Cauldron Complete with all sorts of Mothers and Skyclave Apparition, giving protection from things, and then that was a Solitude, which took care of the Flicker Wisp. So no damage dealt with the Sword of Fire and Ice. I think 1 damage dealt, maybe 0 damage dealt with the Cauldron Complete. And throwing down an Egangio's Castle. This prevents 2 damage to target legendary creature. Kind of a one of in certain Death and Taxes lists. I see a lot of people favoring Caracas over Egangio's, but it's if you need that damage prevented and not bounced the creature, then that's your play. All right, we have an Aether Vial coming down. It is incredible that John has survived as long. This is showing the raw power of multiple Mother of Runes in play. Just being able to stop so much trample, haste, exile damage from the Cauldron Complete. Usually just a complete powerhouse that is able to kill in 4 turns or so if there is nothing else interacting with it. But John's kind of running out of options here, giving multiple things protection, but not the Mother of Runes themselves. Seeing the Caracas being bounced after getting wastelanded. So the Thalia is back in hand. John doesn't have a play here. Because of the wasteland, he only has 3 mana now, so he's even further from casting either his Batterskull or his Yorion. Have a Swords to Plowshares coming down. That is a white card, and because of that, the protection from blue and red from the Sword of Fire and Ice doesn't really matter. So it's just an empty Cauldron Complete sitting on the field now. Loading up the Esper Sentinel and throwing back down Thalia again. All right, John, thinking of his options. Looks like Mason has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. If he draws 1 more mana, then he will be able to equip Cauldron Complete. Phyrexian Revoker does come down, naming Cauldron Complete, so the activated ability of the equip cost cannot be paid at this time on either side of the field. Kind of a last-ditch effort for John to stop the Cauldron. Binning the Revoker to the Esper Sentinel to avoid the extra damage and draw a card. And we do see a 7th mana. And Mason goes, loads up the Cauldron, and that is game 1. Kind of a slog. Death and Taxes versus Death and Taxes. They have a lot of the same stuff. And so you are going to see a lot of just going back and forth, trying to get in 1 damage, 2 damage, 3 damage at a time, all these little 1/1s. Or most of the time nowadays is just Cauldron Completes battling against each other. Aether Vials coming down on both sides of the table. Did want to point out Rishadan Port is a utility land that can tap down an opponent's land, usually done during upkeep, so that you lose access to that mana, and it's as if you do not have that mana for that turn, which you see Mason doing here, tapping that Plains, taking John off of his white source for the turn, but unfortunately, double Aether Vial usually gets around the mana denial. Although we are seeing a Wasteland here. No mana for John this turn. Aether Vial's on 2 and 3. Activating, getting a Stoneforge Mystic down. No responses. Let's see what Mason pulls up. Thinking about it. There's usually 2 to 3 equipments in the Death and Taxes deck. Sometimes 4 if they're being incredibly, what's the term? I don't want to say greedy, because as a former Death and Taxes player myself, I sometimes run 4 equipments. But usually it's the Cauldron Complete and the Batterskull, and then either Umezawa's Jitte or Sword of Fire and Ice. All right, Cauldron Complete coming down. Activated. Flicker Wisp in response. Well, it's not really in response because the Cauldron has to come down. The token has to be attached, and then the Flicker Wisp. So that was probably in his end phase. On 4, Palace Jailer coming down. This actually does 2 things. So it's going to exile a creature that's in play, and it's also going to make the player who's casting it become the Monarch. And the Monarch has, it's basically a token that can be passed back and forth, or an emblem, I believe. And whenever you end your turn, if you are the Monarch, you get to draw an extra card during your end phase. Monarch can be passed back and forth, depending on if you deal combat damage. And Mason can get his creature that is exiled back if he can deal combat damage to John. So it does not matter if the Palace Jailer is in play or not. As long as he deals combat damage, he can get it back. Flash in a Skyclave Apparition. It's going to deal with the Flicker Wisp. Still 5 damage coming from the Cauldron Complete. Looks like double blocks are happening here. And because of that, Mason is going to get a 3/3 illusion due to the Skyclave Apparition coming down and exiling the Flicker Wisp, which was CMC3. But he did not deal any combat damage, which I think John was very keen to avoid so that he could continue to keep that Monarch token on his side, Monarch emblem. All right, we see a Stoneforge Mystic come down from Mason, grabbing Umezawa's Jitte. Pretty good play there. Umezawa's Jitte can take over the field pretty easily, as long as that creature keeps connecting. We see an Aether Vial on John's side at 5, so he can now put down Yorion, and he can put down Solitude. But Yorion is still in his sideboard. He can pay 3 mana at sorcery speed to put it in his hand during his turn. But that did not happen. So we will see what Mason wants to do here. 2 mana. Get down the Jitte. Loading it up on the illusion. Cauldron Complete. Double. Oh boy. Recruiter of the Guard coming down on the 3. And I guess he's activating the 5 in response, activating the 3. Gonna grab Solitude. It's in his hand when the 5 goes off. He's going to gain 5 life, but he loses his Germ. The illusion is gone. Traded with Flicker Wisp. He does get 2 counters on the Umezawa's Jitte, though. Oh boy. Wow, that was a heck of a play from John's side. All right, we're putting Yorion into his hand. And he has the Caracas. This is a crazy interaction where when Yorion comes down, it can flash or blink, remove all of the non-land things that he wants from play, and then they come back to play. So enter the battlefield effects are super strong with Yorion, and then he can bounce it back to his hand with Caracas since Yorion is a legendary creature. So if not interacted with, he could do this every turn if he wanted to, using Recruiter of the Guard to go and get another Silver Bullet from his deck and exiling with Solitude. That looks like it was a Swords to Plowshares on the Stoneforge Mystic. So no attacking there. Game kind of running away. The absolute raw power of Aether Vial in this situation is unreal. So a 3 Sanctum Prelate. CMC he called was 1, so no more Aether Vials, no more Swords to Plowshares. Swords being one of the most effective cards in this matchup. You really like to see Swords to deal with problematic creatures on your opponent's side. Got 2 Wastelands down on Rishadan Port. 2 mana. Oh, the Field of Ruin is being activated. I didn't see what... Oh, the Rishadan Port getting blown up on Mason's side, so they both get to go find a basic out of their deck. So it's kind of more mana denial, but you don't get behind because you still get to go and get a basic yourself. The Thalia coming down really quick there, getting bounced right back with the Caracas. This Phyrexian Revoker is naming Umezawa's Jite. No longer being able to activate. Wasteland, wasting the Karakas on the opposite side. 5. Yorion bouncing. Just Recruiter. So he did that during Mason's second main phase, because if you did it in the end phase, he wouldn't have it back until the end of his next turn. And you don't want to wait a full turn for that effect when you can have it right then and there. Grabbing a Flicker Wisp. Oh man, the amount of things that John can do on his side is pretty immense at this point. All right, 2 coming down, tapping the 3 Aether Vial to get a Skyclave Apparition down. Yeah, this is not looking good for Mason. Activating the 3 Skyclave, taking the Revoker off the field. So Umezawa's Jite is now live. Tapping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that was a Solitude out of the hand. So that'll wrap it up there. Going into game 3, we have a Giver of Runes down on Mason's side. Turn 1, Stoneforge Mystic, Mother of Runes on John's side. Giver of Runes, a little bit different than Mother of Runes. It can't target itself, but it can target colorless sources. So this can stop things like Umezawa's Jite. It can stop things like the colorless construct tokens that are made from Urza Saga. And it can stop a whole lot of stuff from the Tron lists, like the targeted Ulamog triggers when it gets cast and comes into play. Stoneforge Mystic coming down on both sides. I think they both grabbed Cauldron Complete. I believe it's John's turn. Solitude coming down, nailing the Giver of Runes. Giver of Runes giving Stoneforge Mystic protection from black. Trying to get ahead of the Cauldron Complete coming down. Giving it a block. Getting Umezawa's Jite down. Mason is still going to take 3 damage from that. But it is better than 5. Stoneforge Mystic getting loaded up with Umezawa's Jite, trying to, swords to try and get the Umezawas in, but a sword's out of John's hand. Just sometimes you got one more piece of removal than your opponent does, and that makes all the difference. Thalia coming down. Can't quite equip it. Oh, this is the Cathar Commando. So at any time, it can be cast at instant speed. It's a 3/1. And it can be sacrificed for 1 mana to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. And that is going to do it. Mason's going to scoop it up, and that'll be our round 1. Please join us for round 2 in just a little bit. Thanks.